family started the bakery business here in Windsor in 1918, and I did it as a child growing up and through university. Um, in the middle of my career, actually, I was in the financial world, and I came back to baking in, I think it was 2009. And before I opened this particular location, I was in partnership with my sister on Langlois Avenue, where the bakery that my grandfather started. And now, since 2018, my son, daughter, and myself, we run Union Bakery here.
For Littlefoot Foods, we started in 2013 over in Riverside in a small community center. We hit a point where we maxed out what we could make there, so we opened up this location in 2017 and have been going strong ever since. We do a mix of direct sales to customers through this location and various events across the city, including the downtown farmers market. And a large portion of our business now comes from wholesaling to about 60 businesses across the province.
My name's Tom Manherz. Along with my wife, we own Wolfhead Distillery. We started this 7 years ago. We make whiskey, we make vodka, and we recently introduced gin.
I'm a registered kinesiologist, and I'm part owner here at Pinnacle Physiotherapy.
We opened up the Healthy Image Center in recognition of the fact that there were a lot of aesthetic options that were evolving and developing at that time that I wanted to be able to introduce to the local community.
The business that we are in is rehabilitation services, specifically physiotherapy. We started 21 years ago, and we treat all sorts of injuries, from work injuries, motor vehicle injuries, and also any surgical procedures. We can rehab that as well.
What we do differently, a lot of the shoe stores are just self-serve today, where we do fittings. We specialize in comfort shoes now. We used to be completely high fashion, but things have changed. People are more casual, and now we're specializing in comfort fashion. Our main brand is SAS shoes, which are fitting for orthotics, and they also have some style as well. We have all sizes. The average shoe store does not carry widths or size, a lot of large sizes or small sizes, and we carry all sizes.
Well, we got started because my wife finished her master's degree in communications and decided that she didn't want to work in an office. So we were throwing around the idea of what we would do, and she said that she wanted to cook. I thought that was a good idea because I like her food, and asked what she would want to make. We started with the thought of doing custom meals for families, and she ended up saying that she makes pierogi. At this point, I hadn't tried one of her pierogi, so I was astounded. We went home, she made a batch, and they were the best pierogi I ever had in my life. So from there, we started selling to family and friends. The family recognized that as Babcha's recipe, and word of mouth took over, and we grew little by little. We got into a couple retail locations, including Dressed by an Olive and Robbie's Gourmet Sausage Company. We saw what that did to help our business as far as sales went, and as far as marketing, getting further and further out in front of new faces. And from there, we started doing more events and kind of getting deeper and tying into the community a lot.
They call me the humorologist around here because we feel that when you're in an injury and rehabbing, it's not always the most fun, and we like to make it fun around here. So there's a lot of Marioisms that happen here. We call it like the cheers of physiotherapy, because we all know your name and we're like a family here. And it's not a quiet place. You always hear fun banter when you come in to rehab. So there's always a joke, or there's always a question of the day, and it's not just all do your exercises and leave. We have a good time while doing it.
In the late 20s, there was a movie with Joan Crawford, and her name was Diane in the movie, and that's how they hit that name.
Aesthetic medicine to me is a way to make concordant the way patients feel and the way they look. As we get older, what happens to a lot of us is we start looking tired when we're not, or we start looking angry when we're not. And thus our expressions and our faces give rise to wrong messages. And by doing some of these treatments, we can help provide a little bit more congruence to how you feel and how you look.
People didn't realize that like we aren't trained cooks, that everything we do we've experimented with, and it just comes from a love of cooking for others and wanting to make pierogies kind of stand out amongst everything else.
So during the pandemic, Wolfhead really wanted to have an opportunity to support other local small businesses in our community. So a few of the collaborations that we currently have going on are our maple syrup by Giffins. So these guys have been around for a long time. They're out of Blenheim, and what they've done is they've aged their maple syrup in our whiskey barrels for 3 months. And what we hope to do after is get those back and maybe do a maple whiskey. And then we also have Colonial coffee. So this is the coffee that we actually use in our popular coffee whiskey liqueur. So this is roasted on a weekly basis.
And here we have a slava bread. It's a traditional Serbian bread, and they use it for several occasions. When there's a funeral in the family, they'll take this to church. That's part of their tradition. As well as once a year, they have a celebration for a saint that looks over their house, and they celebrate something called Slava, where they invite their friends and relatives over to share in a feast, and this is always part of the feast.
Well, the goal for the future is just existing. We've gone through, from the 1900s, 2 wars, a couple depressions,
now a pandemic, so you've
Yeah.
been through it all.
2 or 3 pandemics, and we're just trying to exist. And maybe I'm stubborn. I just hate to give up.